Hey guys, Desolate Magic here, and it looks like Mark Rosewater went on an absolute, high volume even for him, rampage on Twitter today. Usually he'll just, passive aggressively post something kind of with subtle sarcasm, kind of a shot at the general community, unhappiness with anything he's done lately. He's done this over the last couple of years. But rarely does he take the time to just individually reply to this many people. And I mean, this Twitter, Rampage went on for, I'm looking at the dates, over 8 hours, 9 hours. Just literally all day, he just nonstop read Twitter and then tried to defend himself to everybody over everything. Basically said everybody's comments went too far. Well, he's trying to be polite about it because, public image, he actually cares, unlike the other people who work there. But wow, he got not just defensive, oh, I think you're wrong or you're overreacting, period. He's going way past that. So let's read some examples here. First, not totally related, but on May 4th, he actually posted, "Inquiring minds want to know, in the month of April, what was the most common way you played Magic? In person with family was 7.3. I mean, if you got roommates, you got family. I don't know. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff you can do without drastically violating quarantine or, at all. I'm still playing D&D because it's 3 people. Oh, one of which had surgery and so hasn't really left the house in a while. So I think that's really cool. I would have thought it would be 2%. So to see 7.3 is just wonderful. Then MTGA or MTGO, so basically digital at all, a shockingly low 51.9%. I mean, 6-7 years ago, I would have thought, yeah, about half of people bother with some digital platform at all. But that number seems low, although the next category is through some other means, which is 12.8%, which, I mean, yeah, some people are jumping on webcams and stuff and playing, Commander with other people digitally, and it's actually working fantastically. But I feel out of that 12, about maybe 10 of it is X-Mage and, the other free Magic platforms that people made, and Wizards is wise enough to not try to attack. I mean, if people want to keep playing the game but are not willing to drop any money on it, that just is a target demographic. You either keep them in the game or you don't. You either piss them off or you don't. They are not going to use MTGA or MTGO. So if you were to combine them, I think over 60% of people are playing digitally, which is still low, but okay. But the shocking one is the bottom. 28.1% said I didn't play. Now, what subcategory would be, okay, I'm not playing because quarantine, or I'm not playing because money, or I'm not playing because of the cost of cards, the cost of the mana bases, or how many people are just so disgusted with the state of Standard and they're a Standard player that they're just forget it. That would be my guess. I don't want to dive too deep into the comments on this one because the other ones are a lot spicier, but I just thought this poll is very interesting. I mean, it had over 6,000 votes, so this is a pretty decent cross-section. That said, it is people who follow him on Twitter. So next up, we've got Inquiring Minds Want to Know from May 5th. This is a question that I asked on my blog that I was curious to see this audience answer. And yeah, it was actually a little bit higher on the third option on his blog. It was up in the 70% range. But yeah, what is your thoughts on the power level of current standard legal sets? I love how he said standard legal sets just to mislead and confuse the issue. Not the standard meta right now, not the competitive tier 1 meta, but the sets. Like in a vacuum by themselves is how I would read that. I think a lot of people took it literally, but yeah, 7.4% of people said too low. They have lost their damn minds. 29.2%, so not insignificant, but very small percentage of people say it's at the right level. And if you didn't watch my other video on his blog, anybody who voted for option B here pretty much said, well, I don't play standard, but, and then it was I appreciate cards for my commander deck and blah, 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 whatever. So you think the standard power level of the sets is great because you don't play standard and don't care about the standard power level. You just want power cards to buy and put in commander. In my opinion, your vote should be thrown out if that's you. I mean, I can't say, oh no, that's not a valid way to experience and play the game, but should you really be voting on if standard is an appropriate power level if you don't even play it? But that's why he said the standard legal sets, as in the products, the releases, not do you think standard gameplay and the standard competitive meta right now, specifically in the standard format, is too powerful? If he asked that, it would be 99%. It's too high. So he purposely asked a misleading question, and shocker, he got misleading answers. So the third one, 63.4%, too high, make it weaker. And the comments on this one were somewhat spicy. I mean, somebody just straight up put, stop making legendary cards for use in Commander and just shoving them in Standard. Personally, I would expand that to stop printing cards that are clearly intended for other formats in Standard. Unless you're very confident that it won't be used in standard, then, whatever. But of course he hits back with, doubling down on that article they wrote a while ago where he says the whole point of standard legal sets is to make cards for everyone playable in their favorite format. No, that would be Modern Horizons, the Commander products, and the Draft products, and every other product other than standard. That's the point of those. The point of standard is to make a healthy playable standard because that's your core thing. That's what new players do. That's what the majority of players play. You got to let standard be standard. He's completely wrong about that. And their whole design philosophy of jacking up the power so that they can share the cards with other formats is ridiculous. I mean, look how that went. Look how Luris is going. Wow. I'm so happy they shared that quality card with the rest of the formats. Thanks. A lot of people said, I don't like being forced into playing, like Grafdigger's Cage or whatever to stop some broken crap that everybody's playing too much. Like 10-20% of my deck should not be allocated to stopping cards that never should have been printed just so I can play my damn deck. A lot of people were discounting the hilariously high 7% that said too low, make it stronger, calling them trolls and, people trying to destroy the game and that kind of stuff. A lot of people shared the sentiment that, well, I don't care about high power as long as there's enough other high power to balance it. That is never how it works. Never. It would be a miracle if they cranked up the power level to like Winota and Luris and Gyruda and Torbran and Agent of Treachery and Hydroid Krasis and all of the ramp and Landfetch. If they went that route and then still had a balanced meta, no way in hell. This is just simply how it works. The more cards you have to choose from, the more powerful the potential resulting top decks are going to be. That's just clear as day. But if you could assign like a representative number of the power of a card, I know you can't really do that, but if you kind of could to the maximum amount of accuracy possible, if you go from, the average power of a card is 4 out of 10 and go up to like 8, you are more likely to get a tiny amount of top decks with a ridiculous power level and a narrow, like tiny number of those decks than if the average power level is just 4. And we'll say there's, 1,800 cards to choose from in standard or whatever. So if you crank up the power level of a bunch of the cards across the board, the mathematical result every time, sparing some weird anomaly, is 1 or 2 or 3 broken decks. Things that are in a whole other league power-wise and just simply cannot be beaten. So if they kept everything to 4, as some idiots would describe as no good cards, no super-powered strategies in standard, you're more mathematically likely to have 10 to 20 to 30 decks that all aren't that much better than each other. That's just how math, probability, and just the baseline of everything works, sparing what the card actually says. Because what the card actually works with and says, breaks that. But if you just remove colors, strategies, tribals, everything, and just say, this is the power level, this is the pool, what is it going to coalesce into? If you print too many high-powered cards, the answer is a narrow amount of unbeatable decks. And if you lower the power level across the board, the answer is a high variety of mediocre decks. But when those are all you have to play with is, mediocre decks compared to what we have now, then the deck variety goes through the window. You can build anything, and if you build something just a little bit worse, it still has a chance of winning because the relative power level is a lower difference. I know how much you guys love math theory, but I wanted to get that one out there because that's just at a basic level how it works. And then what builds on it from there is what the card actually says and does. But it's pretty hard to get off the trail of where you're headed if you just go power card, power card, power card, because a lot of cards are like, oh, this clones and enters the battlefield effect. Oh, this creates mana. That's wide open to work with any other card at all. So it acts like it's just an arbitrary number sitting there waiting to interact with anything else printed in the pool. And that's why you get this rise to the top of unbeatable decks. It's probability, it's powers, it's statistics, it's number theory. It's that's just how it works. And that's why we keep having the same problem over and over and over. A lot of people have mentioned, too many creatures, not enough ways to deal with them, too many giant beastly cards that are too hard to shut down, like Trawler. Just generally too many threats, combos, enchantments, artifacts that you can't get rid of, Torbran, Embercleave, that kind of stuff. Too many threats, not enough answers, which is hilarious because back up a couple months, total control-a-thon shit show, you couldn't get anything to resolve. White blue or white black blue, and I'm not going to let you stick anything. That's what everybody was playing. Nobody could tolerate it. It was the most annoying deck archetype, and control was out of control. So their response to that was to print a bunch of just giant threats that nobody has enough control to stop. And people are calling them out on it. A lot of people are, rightly so, I'm shocked that enough people are saying this, that the problem is the mana base, the easy fixing. They said 5 colors should not be this easily consistently playable in standard. And you guys know my stance. This will always be my stance, and I'm absolutely correct about this. I don't care what anybody says. Standard should be limited to 2 color. It should be illegal against the rules of standard to build a 3 color deck. Looking back at like the 50 to 100 problematic decks in the last 10 years, I'd say maybe 75% of them would be solved by that policy. 3-color do-it-all Swiss Army best-of decks have been a problem since forever, and the only time that they were a little bit less of a problem is when you couldn't guaranteed have all 3 colors by turn 3 or 4, and that's what we have now in Standard. People really underestimate the power of adding a 3rd color to a deck because it provides ways to deal with anything. If you play 2 colors, it doesn't matter what the 2 colors are, your deck is going to have blind spots, it's going to have a weakness. Boy, the intelligence of the people commenting on this is shockingly high, considered how much of an absolute shit show Twitter usually is. Somebody said this brilliant remark: I'd say Agent of Treachery wouldn't even be a problem if it weren't for the decks that can cast it so easily and frequently. Remember when I saw the spoiler and I'm like, well, yeah, that's unbelievable. You never give the card back and it can target lands. That's ridiculous, but it costs 7, so how played is it really going to be? Yeah, that's how Magic normally works, where something costs 6, 7, or 8, and you're like, well, that's a power card, but I mean, good luck playing it. Now, it's like turn 4 free cast, and almost everything wrong with Magic right now is free casting, by the way. A lot of people are just simply putting Companion was a dumb idea and never should have been designed. Why? Which brings me to one tweet that I really wanted to highlight. Mark finally posted after his 10-hour Twitter, bitchathon. I have at no point tried to absolve myself. I put companions in Ikoria in vision design. I did it. It's on me. I've been talking with players today particularly to figure out if that was a mistake, so I know what to do in a similar spot in the future. Yeah, quit. You've proven you don't know Magic. We all know better than you, and all we do is play the damn game. If the community as a whole, one day after a given set of spoilers comes out, says, well, that's going to be a broken, disgusting disgrace of a problem, then we're smarter than you, and it's your job and you're getting paid to do this. To be perfectly blunt, Mark, if you did not know that adding an automatic 8th card, starting the game with 8 cards, handpicked by you to work flawlessly with the deck in some degenerate synergy combo thing, and it's protected from, forcing the player to discard it or get rid of it in any way. It's in some protected zone that you can't interact with. If you thought that wouldn't have a significant effect on any format, you are too stupid to do your job. If I started a game and said, hey, wait, hold on, just to make this fair, to make my deck work, I'm going to go hand pick something out of my deck, stick it into some, I don't know, zone. Nobody even knows. It's some made up zone. I can cast it whenever I want, but you can't make me discard it from hand, and it's considered to be in my hand at all times, effectively. That's cool, right? That's not going to be broken or an automatic combo just waiting to happen, right? No. Are you kidding me? My opponent would throw something at me. So you take a terrible idea and throw it into the worst standard meta that has ever existed in the history of the game. I don't care what anybody says, it's worse than it ever has been. Like Cobblade, Jace, Artifact Lands, that pales in comparison to this. So taking a broken, terrible idea that's pushing the power level way too high, giving people automatic, play the same every time consistent stupid decks by letting them basically have a commander. And then add that to Esper Control-a-thons, add that to Hyper Ramp where you got, 8 mana available on turn 4 or whatever. That's a recipe for an absolute nightmare, which is where we are right now. Oh, and that absolute, I live on a different version of reality than the rest of you man bun having dumbass Saffron Olive said, I think that something like 97% of standard cards are at a power level I enjoy. Well, go play Modern then, you dumbass. But the top 3% are way too powerful to the point where they make the entire format less enjoyable. I wonder what cards he's referring to, because it's really the foundation, the infrastructure, the mana base, the mana fixing, the draw, the level of board wipes. That's what's wrong with Magic. That's more than 3%. It's not, oh, well, this card went overboard. It's Right now, there are about 30 cards that went overboard, and the reason that they're so playable is the supporting cards under them. So it's just a fundamental from the ground up problem, not a 3% went too far problem. He's so far off the mark there. But that guy has proven with multiple statements in the past that he doesn't know his ass from his elbow when it comes to fun, traditional, casual F&M standard play. He's one of those hyper-competitive, I don't know what anything outside the GP is. So asking him for an opinion is like asking a blind person how your clothes look. I mean, it's just not going to work. At a fundamental level, he is unable to comment on anything accurately the way normal people think, unfortunately. Honestly, he's just like most of the pro wannabes where they just want to net deck something, go to a tournament and pretend they had anything to do with the deck and then say, oh, I'm a high-level player, everybody respect me. So the higher the power level, the more broken the deck and the more elite you can go. Cool, it's just more wins for them. They don't care. People like him with that attitude really need to get the hell out of our community. So I left one of the best tweets for last. This one was about 6 minutes after people just still kept blowing him up over him designing Companion or thinking in any way that it should leave the drawing board, that anything would be okay with starting with a bonus, automatic, super protected, free fetch. So he just straight up posted, how many times today do I have to accept responsibility for putting companions in Ikoria and Vision Design? I did it. It was me. I'm not trying to duck responsibility. I'm trying to understand how hard to push innovation. Somebody's getting defensive. Okay, when you screw up a card game this bad that it's like 25% of people or whatever consider it unplayable and the numbers on MTGA are going down the toilet and it's all your fault and you work at a multi-billion dollar company with allegedly 10 million active users, you can't just, oh, I made a little mistake, guys. Like, are you kidding? That's like a brain surgeon being like, oh, sorry, I dropped the scalpel directly into the person's brain and killed him. My bad. At a certain point, your job comes with a little bit of responsibility, like more than the way you're treating it instead of, whoops, I kind of screwed up a little. I like to push it a little sometimes, guys. Whoops. Oh, Hasbro probably lost $250 million in lost revenues because of my decisions personally. Whoopsies. $250 million down the toilet. Oops. So yes, how many times do you have to accept responsibility? The answer is quit your job. That is the answer to that question. Anything short of that, people are going to keep blaming you because it's factually your fault. And the replies to this, oh my gosh. It sounds like you need people around you who respect you, who can tell you no. People who can reel you in shouldn't be all on your shoulders. Oh, poor you and your responsibility. What a polite way of saying you're a dumbass and you need people to stop you constantly, which he constantly complains about, that he comes up with 9 ideas and they throw out like 8 of them because nobody wants to listen to Mark. I wonder why. Other staff members here have joked like 90% of my job is telling Mark no and trying to shut down the crazy shit that he comes up with. So that already exists. He's that pig-headed and that bad at his job. It's you can't stop him. He just shouldn't work there. It's that simple. So the tweet that really blew up, and he pinned it, which that's not something you do, is inquiring minds want to know, while R&D tries to support innovation and balance, the two often fight with each other. Which of the two do you personally believe R&D should prioritize? And it's 42% innovation, 58% balance. Well, pretty much everybody went full-blown taco commercial in the comment section and said, ¿Por qué no las dos? Why can't we have both of them? You can try fun, interesting new things and not have them be broken bullshit. I think balance should be 100% of the priority, and then innovation should be what you do with the rest of your time. Anybody who's like, I've been playing Magic for 20 years and I'm so bored that I have to see something so drastic, you create a new rule, new zone, new whatever, ooh, companion, I love it, it's so great. Just, you've been playing the game too long, shut up. I'm not bored with how Magic plays. If they have a perfectly just whatever set with some interesting new mechanics that don't go too far, it's just, oh, I want to kind of try playing that. That'll be a different style of gameplay than I've played before. Or even if it's like, oh, that's kind of like, you know, like literally Theros with Devotion. It's the exact same thing around again. Cool. All right. A lot of people call Call of Duty games boring, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know what I mean? Like there's 2 points to have there. If people enjoy it, you don't have to add some dumb shit to it. Call of Duty had their worst year when they added like wall jumping, jetpacks, high-tech shit, like, I don't know, all this sciencey sci-fi crap. They basically turned it into a completely different game. And everybody's like, can we stop this, like, you know, Unreal Tournament bullshit that you just injected in the game? Nobody likes it. Just get back to what it was. And then they did, and it sold well. So that's what happens when you try to go too far in the power level. And yeah, like literally the powers and abilities were too fast, too good, too annoying to play against. And then they fixed it. Too bad they didn't fix the problem with constant cheaters, because they have the money to, they just don't want to spend it. So one of the philosophies that somebody tweeted back was, why would we want like a super hyper out of control, dangerous, innovative, brave new high powered car if it could crash and kill us all and it's dangerous and it could ruin everything? Why can't you design a safe and stable working car that just works at a basic level? And all those people that are like, I want super hyper crazy power. Too bad. The rest of us don't. That's why not everybody's driving around in a Lamborghini. People are driving around in like Camrys with an appropriate amount of horsepower, although not in my opinion, but really good safety ratings and stuff. I mean, let's just say I wouldn't turn down, a street legal daily driver with like 220 horsepower, But there's a reason people don't just cruise around in 700 horsepower supercars, because that's not practical, and those people are kind of wrong according to the rest of society, because they could crash and kill themselves. It depends how they drive it. But if you got a hyper fast car and you don't drive it hyper fast, then you kind of don't have a hyper fast car, because it's the same as if you didn't. So people are like, hey, I've got an idea. Innovate new stuff that's fun and interesting, but balance it. Make sure it's not unplayable, out of balance, out of control, crazy shit. Like that's your job. Do both. And he kind of sidestepped it. His whole reasoning here was, I work for innovation. I come up with the ideas. I'm the ideas guy. It's playtesting and R&D that have to rein it in. So he hands over, hey, companion, make this playable and not dead on arrival, but also, not out of control. And then they failed miserably because it's a terrible idea from the ground up. Which it sounds like he's sick of hearing, but, well, the truth hurts, doesn't it? Boo-hoo, get over it. So then he's getting all petty. Oh, what I meant to say was the question was, when they come in conflict with each other, which do you prioritize? Oh yeah, that's what you meant. Hey, I've got an idea. When it comes to, do we prioritize totally broken, overpowered crap or game balance and fair gameplay? Which one would you prioritize when they're at odds? I vote for whatever hyper-powerful card that's pushing the boundaries. Don't print it, just for safety reasons. Innovation is so second to gameplay that isn't shit, that drives people away from the game. You can't afford to do that. Again, you can't just say, well, I guess we'll lose 1 million players again. We're going to lose 10% of our player base again because we broke standard again, and we're not willing to ban cards in a reasonable time again. Here's what outlines the problem in his basic philosophy. He tweeted, if mutate is just bestow again, I agree it's going to be hard to make you happy with innovation. Wrong. Everybody wanted it to just be bestow. Did you listen to what people said? They're like, I hope it's bestow. I hope it's basically just a little bit tweaked bestow. I liked bestow. We got to play bestow once. People who joined the game after Theros never got to play bestow. Bestow is one of my favorite mechanics of all time. If you bring it back verbatim and just call it mutate, nobody would care. They would play it because that is awesome. Having to kill a creature twice, but then it shrinks, like you build it up and then you shrink it back down. That concept is unheard of in the game, other than, I guess, persistent undying, and I wouldn't really compare the two. The build it up, knock it down thing was so perfect with devotion, because that was build it up, knock it down. It's not like, oh, I lost one creature, my devotion deck now collapsed, I can't win. The whole strategy's gone. It's like, oh, I have 7 devotion instead of 9. Okay. They've put me at a slight disadvantage, I'll keep playing the game. It's the same with bestow. Oh, they blew up my giant creature. With mutate, well, my creature's gone then. I lost the whole stack. Wow, how fun. Or bestow, where it's like, okay, my creature just got cut in half, but I still got something in play. All right, let's keep playing and see where this goes. Control should not devastate your opponent's board state and ruin their deck and make the game unplayable with one, tactfully put counterspell or whatever. It should set your opponent back while hopefully simultaneously putting you ahead. That's what control should do in a healthy meta and friendly gameplay. So yes, just making a bestow again, if people are like, it's bestow again, I'm so bored with that. It's been like 6 years or 5 years or something since we had bestow. Are you kidding me? You're tired of it? It was in one set one time. I mean, I'm tired of like trample and first strike, but remember when they printed semi-trample, where whenever this creature becomes blocked, boom, ability goes off, opponent takes 2 directly? Yeah, semi-trample was like the shit. It's not hard to innovate very slight tweaks on existing things, which is what they should do from now until the next 5 years. Semi-hexproof, semi-trample, all these like medium things, and plus they've come up with new ideas that are amazing lately. And they're not overpowered, they're not intrinsically broken. They could make them broken by printing crazy cards, but the mechanic isn't broken. So that brings me right back to innovation versus balance. Which one do you prioritize? Balance, because if there's no balance, nobody's going to play your stupid game in your stupid format. It should be such a high priority. It's like number 1, and innovation is like number 15. A big flashy new thing, a mechanic that nobody's seen before in a game that has 150 sets over 26 years. At a certain point, you just give up on innovation and do the best you can. A lot of the whiny, perpetual dumbass players who've been playing for too long were like, Strive is basically just overload. No, it's slightly different, it works different, and I like it, and it's interesting, and it creates interesting gameplay, interesting decisions. Modal spells, we've seen that before. And yet, choices and making the correct choice is how you outplay your opponent and play around bad card draws, and you lower the luck and up the skill and decision making. So, actually, it was beneficial for the game. But I've seen it before. Well, so what? You've been playing too long. Shut up. Innovation is such a non-issue. They could literally verbatim print an entire set in its entirety and change nothing, and I'd be like, cool, let's play that again. I think quite a lot of people agree with me on that. So you keep saying, well, the broken cards aren't my problem. They just implemented it wrong. Well, Companion was never going to work. An automatic guaranteed 8th card that can't be removed in any way until it's cast that's ridiculous. So him trying to pass the buck, I'm the ideas guy. He even says, I am in function half. Just the high conceptual first part that sets themes and mechanics. That's not entirely true, but he's not entirely wrong. Let's just put it that way. Then somebody mentioned something about bannings, and he replied with, bannings aren't my area. Well, you made the mess, you clean it up. Maybe they should be, but then again, his decision-making and his understanding of the game, maybe he shouldn't be involved in a ban decision. So he says that plus working at home means I'm out of the loop on it. So he's basically like, hands off, I pass it off, whatever. They're the ones who broke it. It's not my fault. Even though he constantly tweets, it is my fault. How many times do I have to hear this? Oh boy, a lot of cognitive dissonance going on here. He says, I'm trying to weigh a hefty issue, so I'm talking to players to help get input to help come to a conclusion. Why exactly is that a wrong thing to do? Then he tries to downplay net decking and just, we all know that's bullshit. Remember that competitive play is a small portion of overall Magic play. It's a very invested and enfranchised group, so it's an important minority to us. I'd say 1/3 to half of all players net deck and play at a high level, no matter if they're playing with their friends, kitchen table, F&M, anything else that's supposed to be a little more casual and friendly. No, they have to win. That's their personality. They're such a weak, just pathetic person that their whole self-worth is like built up on winning a card game every Friday. It's just they're sad, pathetic, obnoxious people ruining everybody's good time. Anyone who brought Nexus Loop to F&M, you're who I'm talking about. That is like the poster boy for the wrong type of player. If you're like, well, I don't really care that my opponent that I'm sitting 3 feet away from, not letting them play their deck, shutting them out and taking infinite turns with zero consideration to their time or their entertainment level or anything, but I don't care, I have to win a couple more packs than them. That mindset gotta go, bro. That is the classic cliche net decker attitude. That's why I hate net deckers. I hate that type of person. I hate how they play. I hate what they do. I hate what they do to the singles market. If every net decking have to win tournament copying dick left the community overnight, just Thanos snapped them out of existence, do you know how much better Magic would be? That's why my crusade against net deckers and their net decking ways and their net decking attitudes will never end, ever. You know I'm right. If you say I'm wrong, you're part of the problem and you're just lying to yourself and everybody else because you don't want to be ashamed of what you do and how you play, which is exactly what I just described. So more sarcastic, whiny crap from Mark. I don't have a crystal ball about what will happen to the mechanics I turn over. Power level is decided completely downstream. Like I said, it's intrinsically broken to give people an automatic 8th card. I'm questioning whether I should push less hard in unknown areas early on so potential problems don't happen later. Should I just bring up how confusing and obnoxious and rule-bending Mutate was? There doesn't appear to be a whole lot wrong with the power level of Mutate, actually. But if he's like, innovation, do something new to the point where that's what you come up with is something that needs like 100 rulings and confuses the crap out of everybody, they have to do a live stream and a Reddit AMA just to explain how the rules work, that's bad high-level conceptual design, so that's also your fault. So Companion and Mutate were both, I guess, your idea and your fault, and for 2 completely different reasons. So you screwed up at an amazing level 2 different ways in the same set. I mean, that's amazing. Look at the results. The ashes, smoking, smoldering dumpster fire ashes that are standard. The one point that I think he makes that's huge, I 100% agree here, is he says, my larger question for today is should companions have been made and banned appropriately in the necessary formats? In other words, like banned ahead of time. Like they'll just say, okay, we're doing this new thing called companion because it'd be kind of neat and standard, which it's not too broken in standard. It's pretty bad, but it's not as bad as other formats. Winota is worse than any Gyruda or Lurus deck, okay? Not even close. Gyruda is ridiculous, but that's because Spark Double never should have been printed, okay? The card's not that bad by itself in a vacuum. And when you've only got 1,800 or so cards to pick from, having to morph your entire deck to fit the category written on the card just to have one stupid card to play one time, it's not a bad mechanic. So, with that in mind, he says, should it have banned appropriately in the necessary formats or never have been made at all? I vote for pre-ban it. I absolutely 100% think that Companion is a new, innovative, amazing idea that really bends the thing. But if they made the deck restrictions drastic enough, with Lurus, nothing can cost above 2. I mean, 2, guy, in standard, 2. Playing standard without cards that cost above 2 mana. Like, are you kidding me? And then the ones that are wide open, which is just play with an 80 card deck, the card isn't very good. They balanced it well, it's interesting, and it kind of brings a little bit of a Commander vibe to standard. I think it was worth doing, and they should have just been a little bit more careful about what the cards specifically do and what they interact with existing cards, like Spark Double. And infinite combos with that stupid Sky Snake and all that bullshit. And, Agent of Treachery, that never should have been printed. There's a couple problem cards. The problem cards are not Companion, is what I'm getting at. But day one, they should have said, Companion as a mechanic is not legal in any other format. Solved. Problem solved. Done. I think it would have been a very, very well-liked mechanic. Some people would have had some grumblings about, 8th card, whatever, but they could have reined it in, kept it in a little bubble called standard, made sure nothing was too overpowered that worked with it, and then just let it go and never let it even touch another format. So he's saying that, should we have done that? That's actually an option that was on the table. Should they have pre-banned it in other formats? He says, should the unhappiness it creates for some mean others should never have gotten happiness from it? It's a very serious question. So he's not being sarcastic or petty or passive-aggressive or any of that. He's literally, I'm not kidding, should we have done it this way? Absolutely. If you're going to push things that are so new, so never before seen, and so potentially broken, just pre-ban them in every format except for standard. You design them for standard. You playtest them in standard. You could probably pull them off in standard because it's so small and there's so few cards to playtest compared to, Eternal. I absolutely think they should have still printed Companion and not printed Spark Double, Fires of Invention or any of that crap. And then just said for rule complication issues, you don't get to use the 10 Companion cards in any other format. Cool, go on with your life. Is that be no, I want to play my Legacy deck with it. I can't believe you'd pre-ban this. This is the worst thing ever. It's oh, okay, that makes sense. They banned all the conspiracy cards from Legacy and Vintage. If you're going to do something in a vacuum and you just say, oh, this might be really bad if we let it outside the vacuum, then just leave it in the damn vacuum. So blah, 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 more crap. We work very hard to make Magic a game you enjoy, and I think the division design team, obviously him included, but he's only worked there for 15 to 20 years. The part of the process that I'm in charge of is some of the best work my team has done in the last 25 years of making Magic, blah, blah, blah. I'm not that bad. I'm not the problem. Shift the blame. No, it's you. I'd say it's 75% you. Remember, no matter how many times he says, I'm just the big concept guy, I come up with it, and then they break it, ruin it, and don't playtest it correctly. He's mentioned specific examples of him helping them playtest, and he said, I designed this card. This card, I designed it. It was mine, it was my idea, I pushed it through. So to say, I'm the ideas guy, and then I just let them design the actual game, no. Then I love how he's it's easy to see problems with 2020 hindsight after the fact. Look back to 3 years of 16 cards getting banned and maybe learn something from that. How about that hindsight? You could have looked back at the absolute shit show that was standard for the last 3 years and thought, maybe I should keep that in mind while designing Ikoria. What were the problems in the last couple years? Oh yeah, too good of mana fixing, too much mana too early, and free casting, free casting, free casting, free casting, free casting, and free casting. Oh, and also free casting. So what they do in the last couple sets? Nothing but free casting. What's all the broken cards? Free casting. So I have an idea. Use that hindsight of 2020 and look back and figure out that free casting is kind of broken. And then stop printing it, because where's the benefit? The risk versus reward. Where's the big benefit of letting people free cast shit? It just improves the game that much more, really. So if you really want to get pissed off at Mark Rosewater, because I don't have time to show the other like 100 tweets that he made today. Actually, it's probably several hundred. I'm looking at 100 just in here. He got really petty, defensive. Every tiny little detail of anybody's tweet, he would rip it apart and say they're wrong and make an excuse and deflect and just... This is like a 10 out of 10 mental gymnastics routine that he's doing here. It's amazing how his ego is like so big in his own mind that he just, none of this could be his fault, until people kept reminding him, no, it is your fault, and just not listening to a word he says in reply to their tweets. And then finally he gave up and was just like, fine, how many times do I have to apologize? And to reiterate, the answer is your resignation from the company. That is the correct answer. That's what we all want. That's what you deserve. Please stop ruining the game, Mark. Replace yourself with somebody who knows how the game and math work. So that was the Mark Rosewater adventure today on Twitter. I wouldn't recommend actually going to look at it because it really pissed me off and I'm in a bad mood. But thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you guys next video.